Laura, good morning.
Morning.
Sean, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Yeah.
Well, I've been better. I ate the almonds this morning, didn't I?
Yeah. Not your best decision one day before an 8-hour live stream.
Got terrible pain in my chest. Terrible.
My throat has been closing all morning.
It actually has. But I feel like the last time we spoke about this, people got it. I'm semi-allergic to almonds. I'm allergic to almonds. But every now and again, I like to see if that's gone, if it's gone away.
So I got in this morning and Ava sat next to me eating like a porridge of some sort.
Yeah, with almonds on it.
And she's like, yeah, I'm still allergic to almonds, and continues to eat it and keeps eating it.
Oh, it's terrible pain.
Says you could feel symptoms coming on and kept eating it. Insane. Insane.
I'm suffering for it now. What have you been up to?
Not this morning.
Being late is what
Yeah,
you were
possibly
up to this
being
morning.
late.
Don't be such a rat. No, you were late and all.
Were you?
No, I wasn't.
Yes,
I was
you
10
were.
minutes early.
No, you were not. You weren't here
I
at
was
8:30.
Neither were.
Yes, I
Oh
was.
yeah, you were. You were here at like
since 7.
7.
I was here from 7 o'clock.
Eager.
I had a nightmare this morning. A nightmare. I was meant to be on something at 6:45. The cab was coming to get me at 5 o'clock. I woke up at 6 o'clock. I got out of the house at 6:08. I had to be in Westminster.
I'm just thinking about how Joel was.
Why have you?
Who's Joel?
What are you talking about?
No, it's just it was just a.
Can I get back to my story?
Yeah. Sorry.
So anyway, I get into this black cab and I say to the cab driver, like, I have to be on telly in like 32 minutes or whatever it was. Bearing in mind, I look like I've just gotten out of bed because I had. And he's like, no problem, love. We did some illegal driving this morning. That was illegal. Embankment, we were on it, honestly. Should we talk about politics then?
Okay, go on then.
All right, Boris is back.
Yay or no?
What? I don't know. Cut her saying no. What happened, Laura?
He appeared at a rally that Rishi Sunak was holding last night in Essex, and he got kind of rapturous reception. People were cheering his name, chanting Boris. I guess
That is his name.
People were chanting what appeared to be his name. Alexander de Pfeffel. Alexander de Pfeffel.
Exactly. Just clarifying.
More as we get it.
And I guess it's kind of like the 11th hour attempt of Rishi Sunak to kind of inject some energy into the campaign.
How long do you think he was trying to get that?
Well, he sort of baited him out, didn't he? He said, Rishi asked me to be here tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just, that would wound you, wouldn't it? Imagine if like you were at, I don't know, had a birthday party and then, I don't know, you turned up and started speaking to my friends being like, Ava actually asked me to be here tonight. Wouldn't have come otherwise.
But of course, you would have invited her to your birthday.
Yeah, but it's like saying Rishi would have, of course, invited Boris.
Yeah.
But it just makes it seem like it wasn't, you didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
You were asked to be there.
Uh-huh.
And then he didn't mention Rishi at all after that.
No, he was, he made the case attacking Labour and reform, but didn't make any positive case for voting for Sunak.
Imagine going into a job interview and instead of talking about your strengths, why you should have the job, you just spend the entire time
ragging on
slating
the other candidate.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a strategy.
A successful one?
I found it, it was actually quite an interesting throwback when I was watching it. I forgot how, like,
What you were going to say.
balloony he is. Like, it's just like bumping.
Verbose.
What? Verbose? No, not verbose.
Well, you might find him verbose.
Yeah.
He was very blonde
is.
yesterday, wasn't he?
He what?
He was very blonde yesterday. He's been on holiday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think
But
he's
no-
been here for a while. He's just been out and about, hasn't he?
No, I thought him championing Brexit yesterday was very much a throwback. It was, I had forgotten how he campaigned because he's been away for so long. But yeah, no, it was.
It was interesting to see him back. I think particularly because it was the night before, Christmas Eve, Christmas Adam, you might say,
Right.
and Election Adam, and the crowd were extremely excited to see him. So much so that actually when Sunak came out, they almost appeared to be quite deflated. Mm-hmm. There was a really uncomfortable moment. Sunak was getting cheers from the crowd or whatever, but there was a very uncomfortable moment where he talked about, sorry, I'm very out of breath because the almonds are taking their toll. There was a very uncomfortable moment where Sunak was reeling off their economic achievements, and he was saying, look how much better we are. We're off now compared to 2010. Thank you so much, David Cameron. You really steered the economy in the right direction. He wasn't, not a scrap of applause, not a sniff of an applause. Mm-hmm. Hands firmly not together during that portion.
The whole crowd stood like this.
They did. And then he went back to his classic line that he's been enjoying reeling off the last couple of days, which is, the reading age, the literacy age is, or the reading level in this country is better than it's ever been. And people went, yes. Presumably they had to hear that and not read it because they can't
because
read.
They can't read.
No, but they're
the next generation can, though.
They can read.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting in terms of will bringing Boris Johnson back work, because I don't know if you've had the same experience, but when we've kind of been out and about in the constituencies in the last 6 weeks, when I've come across Conservative voters who are saying that they're no longer voting Conservative, they'll often mention 2019 as being galvanised by Boris Johnson. And I think there was in Ed's piece where he went to Canvey Island, was it? Which is a very safe Conservative seat. He met a woman there who was just saying, we just want Boris back. If Boris is back, everything will be better. And I think for certain people in the Conservative Party, reminding them of what they would consider to have been the better days of the Conservative Party pre-Liz Truss is quite a good tactic. But I think for the majority of Conservative voters and the majority of the country, bringing Boris back will actually just remind them of Partygate, Owen Paterson, Chris Pincher, the total continuous scandals that took place when he was in charge.
Especially when you consider that Sunak's main attack line for Keir Starmer is that he was in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet. Therefore, he's he has the same ideas as Corbyn, so he is a socialist and he's going to redistribute wealth, and that's very dangerous. If you're going to make that argument, surely bringing up Boris Johnson means that you are also, you are complicit in his government. You were part of all of the scandals that surrounded Boris Johnson, so it's almost sort of it's an admission that he was in bed with Corbyn. I was in bed with Johnson.
It is quite crazy how they managed to, throughout this campaign have located the problem with the Conservative Party in Liz Truss and kind of act actually things were fine before that. Just forget about what was before it. It was just Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak opposed her. Which I think, and then it just shows how you can or how certain MPs from both parties are able to launder their reputation given enough time passes. The fact that David Cameron is foreign secretary now and doesn't ever austerity is arguably one of the reasons that we're in the position we're in right now. And he never it doesn't matter. He's
and
the foreign secretary
is
now.
That the adults are back in the room whenever he's about the place. It's the diplomat, it's the statesman, it's everything that isn't what he is remembered for.
Yeah.
And when you consider that chain of events as well, of his participation in austerity, if you put your mind in you imagine that you're the sort of typical Conservative voter who might be switching to Reform at this election, and you're very concerned about, say, migration or the small boats crossings. David Cameron kicked off that domino effect, which is he reduced the foreign aid budget, and he reduced the sort of the spending and intervention that we were having in countries that fell into civil war. That has created a domino effect, which means that more people are fleeing their country and crossing the channel. If people in this country were able to do a little bit of cognitive thinking, you would be able to join the dots on that.
No, you shouldn't expect people to do that.
Well, I wonder if what Boris Johnson right now is thinking and hoping, and also by how he kind of was careful, even though he was there at the last hour, not to associate himself too much with Sunak, is that in a couple of years' time, enough time will have passed that he'll be in the same position David Cameron was in, and he can make a return to frontline politics and be the saviour of the Conservative Party.
Boris Johnson?
Yeah.
I don't know if he will. I think he'll go on the circuit, he'll do his speeches, he'll write books. After being
He's
the
got
Prime
no
Minister.
interest, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think?
I maybe like something in the UN or something like that, but I can't imagine him going back to UK politics.
US politics, I think, it'll be interesting to see the book. When the book is published, it'll be interesting to see the American cover of that book. I think that'll give a clear indication over whether he's about to go and take America or whether he's not interested in it. Do you know how Liz Truss had 2 different front covers to her book?
Yeah.
I wonder how that sold in America. You know, who was it yesterday? Journalist yesterday was saying to me that he met Joe Biden in 2020 and he didn't know who Boris Johnson was at the time.
Really?
Yeah, I think we've got this real idea that Boris Johnson is sort of like, is going to fall into America and everyone's going to be desperate to have him on the dinner party circuit. And he's, you know, the same thing that we had with Nigel Farage. We have this idea that they're all, you know, sort of like, come and talk to us. And actually they don't know who they are.
Generally, I think Brits have an overinflated sense of the relationship between the UK and the US.
Oh, for sure.
It's that, you know, that Mad Men meme.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think about you at all.
Yeah.
It's that. Like, they're only there when the US needs them to do something like Iraq or whatever. But generally, they could care less about the UK.
And we were very helpful to them when we were sort of the gateway into the EU. Not being the gateway into the EU anymore renders us...
It's just a landmass next to Europe now.
Yeah, well, we were the English-speaking country that could explain the EU trading bloc. We're still English-speaking, but we don't know anything about that trading bloc.
There was really funny photos in like 2017, 2018 of ATMs in Brussels that had like the select the language bit on the ATM, and for English, it had the Irish flag on them.
Wow.
Yeah. All around Brussels.
That's
it was
really
very funny. Yeah.
Do they have to do that with Americans, don't they? English, they have to put the American flag next to it. Yeah.
It's like the American flag for English, the Mexican flag for Spanish, the Brazilian flag for Portuguese. All right.
What was that?
We're trying to do some important journalism here.
Well, he's trying to add in some. The sound quality perhaps was too good, so he's trying to.
He's just banging on the table.
They need this. Well, where were we? Boris Johnson. That was what I was going to say. Yeah, about us being rather irrelevant. It's sort of like Nigel Farage, an advisor to. I don't want to narrow it down too much. An advisor in the Americas continent was talking about how at CPAC earlier this year, Nigel Farage chewed the ear off of his advisor for hours, and the actual statesman. And the statesman was trying to get away from him for ages, but Nigel had no one to talk to. He was walking around apparently like a... No one knew who he was. And we've got this...
We've been at CPAC for years.
But we talk... Listen, he's the man who delivered Brexit, right? We are now 8 years out of Brexit. The rest of the world is not looking at us saying things like, well, they cut ties with Europe and now they are, you know, the king of the globalists. You know, they're trading like no one even knew, and you can't move for British steel. You're not. No one's thinking that. So they've forgotten about Brexit.
Yeah.
I actually think that an interesting Vox in America would be to ask them if they even know what Brexit is.
And if they think it was a good idea. like their take on what the good idea of Brexit is. We're like, well, you've got that sweet New Zealand lamb, for example.
Tim Tams now.
Tim Tams, yeah. That video was great. That was like during the pandemic, wasn't it? Boris Johnson did that video of like the benefits of the Australian trade agreement.
Oh God, yeah.
Where he's getting all the Australian candy and like, look at all the choice you have now.
He's like one of those YouTubers that's like trying American candy.
Yeah.
The worst one is the Pacific trade deal. Go and have a look at that.
The CTP.
Zero benefit from that. They're like, the I can't remember off the top of my head the numbers, but
EU, isn't it?
I remember the trade that we were like with Europe. We were talking billions, obviously, and with this trade deal, it was like 50 million pounds will enter the UK economy, and it's like, great, look forward to that.
Yeah,
that's not even enough for a hospital.
A footballer's worth. A good footballer.
So we can. Did you see that tweet that was like, there was white smoke during the Portugal game, and they say it's when they've announced a new Pepe.
That's very good. That's very good.
Darren Jones has been on the front of the Telegraph today. Did you see this?
I didn't. I did see him playing the saxophone though in that video.
Well, let's.
Darren Jones plays the saxophone.
Let's not. Darren Jones on the front of the Telegraph today. There's been a leaked secret recording of a meeting that he held in Bristol in March this year, in which he said Labour, there's been a lot of discussion around inheritance tax, whether we're going to abolish it or not. And if you remember back in March, we were talking about inheritance tax often because it was very much a concrete portion of the analysis or of the narrative, because Jeremy Hunt, it was rumoured that he was going to abolish it in the spring budget. He didn't. Darren Jones was asked about it at this meeting, and he said there aren't any plans to abolish inheritance tax, or there aren't any plans to raise the threshold. I am aware that because people's housing assets are accruing value, it means that more people are potentially being pushed into the bracket. It's 4% of people at the moment in the country who pay inheritance tax. That could rise to 6% by the end of the next parliament. This seems like a very sensible answer to give if you haven't written a policy yet on inheritance tax. Telegraph have written it up that he wants to redistribute wealth. He's coming for your money.
It's a close interpretation of events.
It's interesting because I did actually hear that there have been certain people selling shares because they are scared that there will be more taxes on assets when Labour get into power.
That capital gains. Well, they sort of already have.
Now, isn't it?
They've kind of announced something that is capital gains adjacent, haven't they? Because they've announced that they're going to the carried interest that you currently pay on private equity. You pay about 28%. But they're going to change that, so it's going to be more in line with what everyone else is paying. It's almost like I didn't know about that until a few weeks ago. Probably should have known about it. But I was just sitting at home thinking about it, like, why am I paying the tax that I'm paying?
Yeah.
Why is my salary? Why can't I receive my salary from Joe in like a bond?
Yeah.
I don't understand. And pay like 20%
Play
on
with it on the
instead.
stocks, please.
Yeah.
It's not like Labour with things like that, with things like the private school VAT. It's like it's not actually a tax rise. It's just removing a tax break that the rich were getting.
Oh, okay. Laura. Oh, here she is.
She wants to redistribute wealth.
Coming up with that one. You were more late.
I'm not even here yet.
No. You're not even out of bed.
No. It doesn't look like it, does it?
Anyway, right. So inheritance tax. I think we'll have to check it. I think it's about £10 billion to the Exchequer inheritance tax. It's not a huge amount. You'd think if it was a real raid on people's wealth. So I mean, what I'm thinking with that is that if you're, say, a billionaire and you were subjected to the green tax policy of paying 2%, you would receive more into the Exchequer than all of inheritance tax. I don't know.
Just a thought. Tax the wealthy.
Well, it's just a thought, isn't it? There's also the other side of the argument, because I really, you currently pay, it's on assets £325,000 or more, or whatever. There's all these other different categories or whatever, and I get it that people have accrued a lot of wealth in their homes, and so they don't want to. So it's pushed them up the threshold. So people who should not be or were not usually eligible for inheritance tax are now. But at the same time, if your house has grown in value because of, say, public services that have been paid for by local government, you might have a new train station that's pushed up the value of your house. I mean, I'm thinking about the South. Like if you bought a house, say, in Woolwich or in Whitechapel 40 years ago, you probably paid peanuts for it, and now it's probably worth over £1 million. That'll be down to things like the Elizabeth line, the new infrastructure. So I think
there's a way of doing it that you could change it to say like a sole asset is exempt from inheritance tax, but if you have more than one house, car, whatever, then you can start to put inheritance tax on them, because for a lot of people, they are relying on the death of their parents to be able to afford a home. And then inheriting.
But that's nuts.
But that's what I'm saying. So then those people that, I get your point.
But they could while they're alive, they could remortgage the house and give you some of the equity. Like that, there's no rule stopping you doing that.
No, absolutely. But I just think it's a little bit, it's unfair on the person who inherits a home to have to pay whatever amount of money to actually get that asset if you don't have the money yourself.
Is it?
Well, it isn't your fault what your parents have. That's why I'm saying
but you are gaining a house.
Yeah.
So if you're in that threshold, it's probably because you're inheriting, I don't know, like an £850,000 house. If you had nothing before and now you have to pay a bit of tax, but you gain an £850,000 asset,
No, actually, you give me a £1 million house, you receive nothing.
But also, I guess there's also the conversation about reduced budget for adult social care. So a lot of people do actually remortgage their house anyway. They take the equity out of the house and they use that to pay for their care. There's always this argument against it, and I'm not arguing about. I would never argue for the people who've got. They're just getting by and they're forced to sell their home to go into care. That's extremely sad, and I wouldn't advocate for that. But you've got these punks living in like £2 million houses, and they go, "You want me to pay for my care?" And I'm like, "Listen, Margaret, I have to pay my rent every month to live." And she's like, "You can't expect me to pay to live." Yes, I can.
The state does everything for me.
Yeah. We've talked about this before, haven't we? About like this conception of the state that I don't think we'll ever understand the way that our parents and older have been able to.
Definitely, because I think anyone who's like a boomer or above, like where that was like that was the welfare state, like it was the post World War II state where you could actually like from cradle to grave. That was that what the NHS was designed for, and it's just anyone post austerity will never know that state.
Yeah. There's some people, if you tell them that you're private renting, they'll be like, "Oh, someone's doing well then." Oh, you didn't want to be in the the social housing.
I can afford 70% of my wages.
They'll be like, "Why you didn't want the council house? I think you're too good for that, do you?"
Yeah.
No, I don't. There isn't one. There's no concept of the state actually not existing anymore, that there being no fallback. I think about a lot of my friends who, particularly in COVID, because a lot of people I went to university with were freelancers. It was right at the time when maybe they were like a year into their career, so they were kind of freelancing, and they weren't therefore eligible for the payments, the furlough, and the fallback on the state. Obviously, you fell into universal credit, But in terms of paying the rent on their houses, a lot of them had to move back home or, miles and miles away, which didn't really matter, I suppose it was COVID, but because there was no fallback. Whereas had this been 40 years ago, you would have probably moved into a council house, or there would have been housing benefit to cover you. It doesn't exist anymore.
It's like everything's become quite an individualized responsibility. Your only responsibility is to your immediate close family unit, and there doesn't really seem to be an idea of being part of a wider community and having a responsibility beyond the immediate household.
Collective responsibilities, Eleanor. People liked your point yesterday, didn't they? Your point about en masse, I think it was.
Yes, about yeah.
Yes, they did.
Thank you. Should we chat about Kemi Badenoch?
Please.
There was a report in the Times today by Max Kendicks that was saying 2,600 postal ballots were not sent out in her constituency of North West Essex, which could trigger a challenge and by-election if Badenoch wins by a small margin. What could this mean for Tory leadership post-election?
Well, it could mean the consequences of their own actions, couldn't it? It looks like Kemi Badenoch could lose her seat. I think it's around 2,000 postal votes, 2,400 postal votes hadn't reached.
2,600,
who hadn't reached people. Typically, older voters tend to use the postal system. They vote Conservative, typically. This could mean that Kemi Badenoch doesn't win the seat. So even if she were going to fight a by-election, hypothetically, she may not be eligible to run for Conservative leader because she wouldn't be an MP, she'd be a candidate. So she's out, possibly.
It's interesting because there was that line, I think it appeared in the Times, about Kemi Badenoch is the future of the Conservative Party because she's the only one that survives. But if she doesn't, I wonder if that leaves more room for Suella Braverman, who is set to win her constituency as a potential leadership candidate. What do you guys think of that?
Well, what do you think? Do you think Suella Braverman would... Should we do a nightmare blunt rotation? Who do you think is going to put themselves forward to be leader of the Conservative Party?
I don't think Mogg would do it. Is he set to lose his seat?
I think that he would put himself forward if he felt out of a sense of duty, if he felt the candidates weren't strong enough.
Yeah.
If he felt that his wing of the party weren't being represented.
I wonder if Suella Braverman is too near reform politics to want to become the Conservative leader after the election.
Okay, but what? Okay. Alternate universe. Suella says to Nige, listen, I'm going to run for the leader. I'll bring you in. We do it together. You cross the floor.
Like a Green Party joint leadership thing.
No, you wouldn't. No. Coalition.
Yeah.
She was writing about reform in the Times today. Don't know if you guys...
Pro or con?
Well, saying that we shouldn't judge them harshly. I'll just read what she wrote. She said the party has no right to berate Farage and Reform after the Tories failed to return money to donor Frank Hester over his racist remarks about Diane Abbott, and then said that we need to prepare for the reality and frustration of opposition.
This is nuts. This is insane.
Yeah.
Do you know at the last election when people were, Labour Party members were... pushing for go and vote Liberal Democrat, do not vote Jeremy Corbyn, and there was loads of uproar, and all of that lot were laughing at them. Oh, you're getting a phone call.
And what it's non-stop phone. You mean I don't know who it is.
Pick it up.
Should I?
Ring it back.
Boris, have you got this number? Gerard, look, there is a guy at the moment going through. You're brilliant. His file at home. Fantastic. But I am telling you something, Boris. This guy has got my blood up, all right? And there is nothing which I won't do to get my revenge. It's as simple as that. How badly are you going to hurt this guy? Not badly at all. I want to know. Okay, let me explain this. If this guy is seriously out, I'm fucking curious. I guarantee you, he will not be seriously hurt. How badly hurt will he be? He will not have a broken limb or broken arm. He will not be put into intensive care or anything like that. He will probably get a couple of black eyes and a cracked rib or something like that. Nothing which you didn't suffer in rugby, okay? But you get scared, and that's what I want him to do. I want him to get scared. I want him to have no idea who's behind it, okay?
Gary, if I get
You will not, Boris. I swear to you. If you knew...
I'm not going to say I'm forget it. I just got this bloody number for you. Don't worry. Okay, Gary, I said I'll do it. Don't worry.
Sorry, could you say that again, please? Yep, I'm fine, thank you.
Oh my god! To go from a really earnest conversation about Kemi Badenoch, they're not going to know what just happened, and we're all just sat here red-faced with tears
I think
in
it
our
will
eyes.
have picked up on my mic.
Oh my god!
Well, I think we keep some of it in. I think we keep Laura taking the phone call and put some elevator music over it.
Oh, my
A little bit
mascara's
of it. Huh?
My mascara's wrong, so I was crying on that phone.
What were you saying about Kemi Badenoch? Badenoch, sorry.
Should we just wrap up at this stage?
Right, that'll do. Anyway, live show tomorrow. What time are we on?
I'm just thinking of editing now. Let's say what just happened and why we're finishing now.
Nah.
Laura just got a call from
We're not
a
telling you.
supermarket. I'm telling them.
No, we're not.
Laura just got a call from a supermarket for our food and drink delivery for tomorrow's live show in the studio. And it was so funny that we've decided to call a stop to the podcast. And you also need to return the call. Yeah. Live show tomorrow. Election night live in the studio.
He thinks he's the fucking end.
He's Ollie now.
I'm trying to... Election night live? No. We are live on YouTube from 10 o'clock tomorrow. We're live on YouTube from 10 o'clock tomorrow until very early in the morning. Lots of guests. Lots of food and drink as well from the supermarket that we were just on the phone to. Okay.
We'll be live tomorrow. 10 p.m. exit poll. Actually, I think we'll probably be here from 9:45. Be here for the exit poll. There's going to be a range of guests, faces that you've seen on PoliticsJOE before, faces that you haven't seen on PoliticsJOE before.
Yeah, stay tuned for that.
And then we'll be right here with you, and we'll be. You'll get those results so quick. Anyway, looking forward to it. See you then.